Coming up on Crime Files.
A man who lived in his daughter's dorm room at Sarah Lawrence College,
using threats and violence to enrich himself with millions of dollars.
It's a big scare. It's every parent's worst nightmare.
How did a seemingly ordinary college dorm become the stage for a nightmare controlled by one man?
Larry Ray is a fascinating, strange, deeply manipulative person.
At the core of Ray's criminal conduct was his ability to psychologically control his young victims.
Playing with them like toys.
Basically just taking advantage of them in every way he possibly could.
He used violence, threats, and psychological abuse to try to control and destroy their lives.
He used physical and sexual abuse.
When this story broke, it was utterly insane. The things that he did were pure evil.
His victims lost control of their lives and spiraled out of control. The abuse documented in hours of video. For some, the grip was so firm that they became his enforcers.
Isabella was something of a girlfriend, a henchman.
Young lives forever changed.
There is no doubt in my mind that Isabella was a victim.
And now, Larry Ray breaks his silence.
They've been after me for a long time. I'm absolutely innocent of these charges.
Sarah Lawrence is not far from Times Square, and yet it is this bucolic, sort of New England-esque college campus.
It's an incredible college. It's one of the top colleges in the country. It's very well known.
Very wealthy community, upper middle class, quiet.
We noted that at one point, the security sent out an alert about a fox on campus, roaming campus. That's this kind of sense of safety and security that a beautiful campus like this college campus can provide.
But beneath the picturesque campus facade, a dark, twisted nightmare quietly takes root. A group of ambitious, tight-knit friends is brought together by their shared connection with Talia Ray.
Many of them had been friends freshman year, and they all just ended up in this dorm, Sloan and Woods 9.
Santos, a family-oriented student from the Bronx, Daniel, a creative soul from the West Coast, Claudia, an aspiring attorney from Los Angeles, and Isabella, a loyal friend from New Jersey, all arrived at Sarah Lawrence with big dreams. But everything takes a turn when Talia asks her roommates something unexpected.
One day Talia, says to her roommates, "Do you mind if my father, who's getting out of prison, stays on the couch?" This is kind of a really progressive, open-minded school with these young, idealistic students living in this dorm. And so to say no to something like that might kind of go against those ideals.
These are kids that are supposed to be having the best times of their lives in college, just starting their lives, figuring out themselves, figuring out their futures. And here comes Lawrence Ray.
To Talia, her 50-year-old father is a larger-than-life hero, a man who had been, in her eyes, wrongfully imprisoned. He was being released after serving 3 years on child custody violation charges. So Larry started crashing on his daughter's couch, something he would eventually deny ever happening, and something that Sarah Lawrence College claims it knew nothing about at first. The group of roommates is accommodating and welcoming, and he starts to endear himself to them.
He would buy them these lavish dinners and spoil them and basically portrayed himself as this great father figure in the dorm.
He was the cool dad. He would engender these late night rap sessions, whatever you want to call them, where they would talk, and he seemed to be filled with good advice.
What does your intentional self intend to do today? I wonder what would happen if you asked yourself that every morning.
He loved to tell these stories about recovering Stinger missiles, or how he would help negotiate a ceasefire in Kosovo, or his nights out with high-ranking Marines, or the time he introduced Mikhail Gorbachev to Rudy Giuliani.
I don't know if you know this, but I handled Mikhail Gorbachev for years before this. There's a lot to it, and some of it I think will shock you.
And then he said, "Oh, you don't believe me?" And he pulls out, a picture he has sitting between Gorbachev and Giuliani.
He just presented to them, I guess, an aura of authority and knowledge and at first compassion, because he would make it seem as though he was helping them.
You know, for a while it felt like a family for them, but the closer he became to a lot of them is when that grooming and manipulation started.
Larry grows closer to the group, sharing his philosophy of life with all these young minds. Most are receptive, but his attention begins to zero in on one in particular.
You're funny.
Thank you.
So Isabella was one of Lawrence Ray's first victims, and she essentially was groomed to be his sidekick, his partner in crime.
Ray especially connects with Isabella, who's attending Sarah Lawrence on a full academic scholarship, but is struggling to escape a difficult childhood in Texas, marked by abuse, neglect, and addiction.
She grew up in what I would describe now as a chaotic, uncaring environment. Not a lot of love. There was physical and emotional abuse. I believe one of the reasons she ended up coming to Sarah Lawrence from Texas is to get away from that environment and to create herself all over again.
It only takes a few days after Larry moves in for him and Isabella to start sharing a bed.
When asked if this was kind of a sexual relationship, they would say, no way. In fact, Isabella had gone through a lot of traumatic experiences in high school and as a child, and Larry was helping her work through those experiences and work through that trauma.
More and more, then Isabella started to open up, and Isabella apparently was had thoughts of suicide for years. But I was listening to Isabella a lot, and the point was to try and be helpful and be there for Isabella. But Isabella had a very obviously destructive, objective for herself.
It wasn't simply a dad sleeping in a dorm room, it was a dad really becoming sort of Isabella's master.
Isabella isn't alone. Larry's reach extends to Claudio, Santos, and Daniel, 3 other residents of Slonim Woods 9. He convinces them that they're broken and that only he can fix their shattered lives. He offers to heal their emotional wounds, all while isolating them from their families and their friends.
Their sophomore year of college, Larry lived in the dorm room on and off, and he would spend the rest of his time in an apartment on the Upper East Side.
All 5 students into a New York City apartment with Larry. And it's here where Larry's control over the students begins to tighten.
Wake up! Come on!
We knew a lot about kind of the mental abuse, these kind of struggle sessions by forcing them to answer questions over and over all night.
The sessions become more and more intense, the manipulations more destructive, and he began to record it all. And then the abuse turns physical.
Larry could be really aggressive, especially with the boys, kind of testing their masculinity, getting them to do push-ups, asking them about their sex lives, asking them about their sexuality. We also heard from Daniel, as we were reporting, about Larry shaming him sexually and actually putting a garrote on his testicles when Daniel starts talking about his sexuality and forcing him to dress up like a woman and use sexual toys on himself in front of his classmates to just humiliate Daniel and keep him in line.
Do you think I'm playing with you? Huh? Huh? You're a grown man, I'm a grown man. I don't like what you did.
One video that came out, Larry took a plier and grabbed one of the victim's tongues with the plier in one hand, and then had a hammer in the other hand, and was threatening to hurt him even worse if he didn't listen and he didn't comply.
As Larry Ray tightens his grip on the students of Sarah Lawrence, his manipulation extends beyond the campus. And more vulnerable people are brought into the fold. First, Santos Rosario, who's living with Larry in New York, brings over his sister, Yalitza, who is a senior at Columbia University. Then, in comes Felicia.
Santos introduces Larry to Felicia, his older sister, who had been living in California, working as a doctor. She was in her residency. Felicia, like other students under Larry's sway, really is drawn to this kind of father figure, this person who's going to look out for her.
Daniel and Talia leave the Upper East Side apartment and move back to campus, while others stay behind with Larry, where the abuse only worsens. He convinces them that their every action is damaging his property, sabotaging his life, and poisoning him.
This whole thing was about the poisoning. We wanted to know, what chemicals did you expose Larry to? I clearly wanted to know, what chemicals did you expose Talia to?
Ray moved into his daughter's dorm room and ultimately manipulated his daughter and her friends into doing the unthinkable. An evil man who did evil things.
He exploited them.
Larry was adamant that these students were indebted to him monetarily, that they owed him money for damage they had done to his property.
They stole things, they threw out jewelry, stole jewelry, they were breaking things. The damage was incredible.
Larry now begins recording confessions.
Santos, you damaged so much of my stuff.
Yeah, I know how much stuff it is.
So why don't you do something about it?
Just give me until Monday.
For what?
To get your money.
He little by little groomed them and used their own vulnerabilities against them. He was depriving them of food, he was depriving them of sleep, anything he can do to weaken them mentally and physically to further the abuse and victimize them even further.
A lot of things! I damaged a lot of things in the house!
In your state of mind?
Yes!
Why don't I want to let you in?
Because I damaged too much stuff!
It was their senior year, and by now fellow students who live in the dorm when Larry is there started to notice what was happening. Larry begins taking them to a property down in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and this house becomes a secluded location where his psychological and physical abuse intensifies.
He brought the victims down there to do work, strange work in terms of repairing the place. The refrigerator was chained shut. They could eat on his schedule. They had to do certain work. If they misbehaved, they were locked outside.
There's some terrible footage in North Carolina of Larry wrestling Felicia to the floor and kind of slamming her. It's very difficult to watch.
Felicia, lay down. Larry, please don't leave me! Please don't leave me, Larry! Please, God!
Things just become impossible to ignore, and it's only a matter of time before someone takes notice, and the house of cards Larry had built begins to fall. A website surfaces, one that Larry launched himself and catches the attention of Sarah Lawrence students. On it, Claudia, once a promising law student, details dark confessions.
It's Sunday, March 22nd, 11:20 p.m. I'm the video's team to say that I never stopped poisoning Lawrence Ray, Talia Ray.
Around the same time, students also discover Claudia's profile on an escort website. Their classmates grew worried and went to the police, but no one took them seriously. So it was time to go to the press.
My name is James Walsh. I'm a writer with New York Magazine. The magazine was working with this journalist, Ezra Marcus, who had gone to Sarah Lawrence on a story about a cult. He had laid out this fantastic story that it would be very easy to be skeptical of. And then I get to the parts that are shocking about Daniel's relationship with Larry and what Larry did to him, and I realize, oh my gosh, this is real.
In their reporting, they find that Larry is actually Lawrence Greco. He did serve in the military, 19 days in the Air Force to be exact, but was never a Marine or in the CIA. Even some of his wildest claims turned out to be true. He once introduced former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to New York City officials.
In 2000, Larry was arrested in a mafia-linked pump and dump scheme, and he eventually pleaded guilty to securities fraud. Back when Larry was federally indicted in 2000 and sentenced in 2003, he actually went to Bernie Kerik, who was police commissioner, and he said to Kerik, "Can you help get me out of this mess?" And Kerik, his close friend at the time, roundly shut him down and said, "What are you talking about? I cannot pull strings for you in a federal case." Larry decided that there was a grand conspiracy against him.
Larry eventually lost custody of his children after a bitter divorce from his wife. In April 2019, New York Magazine publishes an explosive article titled "The Stolen Kids of Sarah Lawrence," exposing the horrifying truth about Larry Ray's manipulation, abuse, and the lives he's destroyed over nearly a decade.
And then the investigation really opened up, and Larry Ray was arrested.
At some point, Larry took up residence in a suburban house in New Jersey. So that's where Larry was living, with Isabella and Felicia fully under his thumb when the FBI raided him.
Prosecutors say they started investigating after an article last year in New York Magazine, Ray's scheme, authorities say, starting 10 years ago at Sarah Lawrence College just north of New York City.
We got an email saying that Larry Ray had been arrested and would be arraigned later that day.
Ray, who's being held without bail pending trial, allegedly made millions of dollars from the scheme.
Ray's attorney telling the judge Monday he wants his day in court to tell his side of the story.
Larry is behind bars and denied bail. Isabella, who's also tied up in all of this, has her case separated from Larry's as his trial begins in March of 2022. And what emerged during the trial was nothing short of horrifying. The evidence is punctuated by the videos Larry himself commissioned to prove his own innocence. And every dollar Claudia earned as a sex worker went straight into Larry's pockets. On the stand, she testifies about the abuse she says she endured for 4 years. She worked daily, often seeing up to 5 clients and even working through holidays. Ray pressured her to charge more and lose weight, leading to an eating disorder. Claudia testified she paid Larry $2.5 million that she earned from sex work. On January 20th, 2023, after more than a decade after he moved into that dorm at Sarah Lawrence College, Larry Ray finally faces judgment.
The verdict was read, guilty on all counts. You could almost feel this weight lifted from the Rosario children.
Larry Ray's conviction provides a turning point. Many of his victims slowly began to break out of his grasp, but Isabella's story is far from over. Larry is behind bars and sentenced to 60 years for his crimes. But Isabella, who was seen as Larry's accomplice in his abuse, is now on trial.
New information this afternoon, a New York woman facing federal charges accused of conspiring with the father of a Sarah Lawrence College student to force women into prostitution.
She was essentially his lieutenant in helping him subjugate these kids. She held camera.
I'm not unstable, I'm not violent. You just assaulted me. It wasn't on purpose.
She recorded things. She enforced some of the regulation.
But Isabella's counsel sees something else. They see a college-age student who was taken advantage of and ensnared in Larry's manipulative web.
Isabella is, in my mind, just as much a victim as the other kids who were involved in this case. At the beginning, she was 100% Team Ray. He had complete control over her. Once we got her clear of him, we were able to move in a different direction.
They can reach a plea deal to avoid a trial, but Isabella still faces a complicated reality. Her lawyers and therapists write letters to the court urging the judge to spare her from prison, but their efforts fell short.
She ultimately pleaded guilty to a negotiated plea agreement with a maximum sentence of 5 years, and she was sentenced to 4.5. Everyone let her down. She got to Sarah Lawrence, the school failed to take care of her. And then when we got involved, the defense team, I think that's when she realized that there was someone out there who could help her.
But just when it seemed the story was over, I received a call from Larry himself, responding to a letter I sent him in prison.
This call is from a federal prison.
My name is Lawrence Ray. My registration number is 583-74053. I never lived on that campus. They told us from the beginning that they were supposed to hurt me and my daughter. You know, I was completely railroaded. And then there was a video, it showed me throwing Felicia on the floor. That never happened. Somebody edited that video.
Why should anyone believe you, Larry?
Why would they make something so bizarre up? To what end, Tara?
Larry spoke to me for many hours during prison phone calls over several months. He maintains he's being framed and blames former associates like the former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Kerik and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, claiming their actions were part of a grand conspiracy against him.
Larry Ray is a serial pathological liar, and he will do anything, say anything to anyone, either to save himself or to get what he wants.